Yeah, one last
party.
night. That's crazy.
Ah, sports ball. Yeah,
Half
I'm
the
well
other team to get
informed.
hurt, but we did it.
Sorry, making jokes about sports ball. I literally saw an Insta story of her at the Lakers game like a month ago. So is she pretending to get legitimacy from the
pretending
gamers
not
to not
him.
know about sports? That's crazy.
I'm playing all the.
No, yeah, I'm exposing you, bro. No.
Well, thanks. That's really kind of you.
Work.
That's what good friends do to
Literally
each
at a
other.
game. Like, what are you? Jeez.
Speaking of good friends, some of them stick together at Team Peps for this stage's roster. Wow, Soon is in the mix together with Ken, Tread, Zerion, and FD God. Cookie has also joined Team Peps now for this stage. So they got to make sure that they always have a German at hand. That's the important part.
Yeah.
But yeah, what have we taken away from that first showing with them?
Well, I generally thought Cookie was very good, but Tread showed a really great level of flexibility here. Bear in mind, Tread was one of the options for our cats here and ended up, playing for them in Hangzhou, but we suspect there might have been sort of internal reasons for that. We're not sure it was necessarily performance-based because the ads seemed to fit a better fit, for that meta. But Tread played a bunch of stuff, and honestly, his diva was really good. Also, FD God's nasty. He played very, very well on the brig as well. I couldn't really ban him out there, so I liked what this Peps team had.
And we didn't see Soon last week, which is quite interesting.
Well, I'm sure they'll bring him out for good reasons. Now, Twisted Minds, so much to unpack. I'm very excited about this one. Because when I saw that there's a KSA reunion with Quartz and Yubi, that's already like, But then TVNT is still on the roster as well, basically sharing a hero pool with KSA. So that's like a double hair and eye emojis coming into play there.
You go with the vibes.
They also got the simple the vibes. The vibes were the problem, I believe, prior to this reunion. But yeah, I mean, last week they played a really, really exciting close match against Alcatia. What was the big takeaway? Because they mainly just shoehorned Symmetra in. Like that was just it. It was their thing. But can they do the same thing against
This team is going to play Maga. They are going to play Maga. They are not going to move off of it. When you try and ban it, they'll just play another style of rush. That's what you're going to get from TN. And against most teams, they're able to make it work. I think Alcatia, though, is just really well versed in the different types of strategies they can put together. So I think, but in a game like this against Peps, I do think that they can be quite effective with playing the rush.
Well, we're about to find out as we're heading into our first match of the day. So Match and Mitch, please. Match and Mitch. I just merged
I did it too.
together.
You
know what? I'm being more. That's efficiency. Match. Take it away.
You're just using less words, right? Just us combined plus the word match. It's just just go.
Yeah, it's extremely efficient. I honestly, there's like a tendency to stick casters' names together, so that's fine. I just didn't expect it to be without given names. What do you think about this? Do you think against the Malga, this is a bit of discussion right now, do you think the Freya is as good against the Malga as the Sojourn can be? Because it feels like teams that want to play Sojourn might still have a leg up against those Malga comps.
I think the Freya is fine. Well, we've seen Freya used against some of these Malga comps, and it's looked fine. Like, I don't think there's like a huge difference in terms of damage output, right, when you're looking at the Soj versus the Freya, at least from what we saw in week 1. This is going to be a Genji ban here for Twisted Minds. They get the first one, then it'll be a Juno ban for Peps. So the Juno ban definitely attacks some of those Malga-based compositions that you would like to run. I also want to point out, Mitch, when we did our fantasy lineups, no, I didn't want to point out my dog barking, but I want to point out that our fantasy lineups, we basically only pick from EMEA because we're doing EMEA, because people were like, where's sugar-free?
You can pick from both regions.
Yeah, no, the sugar-free barely would have been in there, but we decided we're here for EMEA. We're going to handle EMEA. We're going to talk about EMEA. So it'll be Busan, the map pick here for TM.
Okay, so the Genji ban against Peps, we've seen Ken play it on occasion, even last week. And I don't know between Quartz and Yubi if there's necessarily a Genji aficionado on the side of Twisted Minds. Even Psycho, I don't necessarily know if they play a ton of Genji either. So that just might not be something that's in the pool. Also can function as like a protect for something like Symmetra, who will be targeted on occasion over this series and soon is in the server. We'll see him over Cookie today.
Yeah, that was one thing that surprised me when we saw the lineup, right? It's like, Cookie and Tread are the two new additions to this roster. We saw Cookie all last week. I know fans in the chat were wondering where Soon was. We will get a look at Soon. When you think of Soon, right, you think of like Tracer play, where maybe they want to run some Tracer, but at least here early on, it'll be Soon playing the Soj, so a little bit of a different look. Yeah, Ken on the
Widow
Tracer.
play as well. Yeah. Obviously, seen Soon on a long-range hit scan in the days of yore. Come on, Zarian, giving him fantasy points, buddy. No slacking today, Chief. We've got the Ramatri here for Twisted Mind. So this team always really prefers that sort of less flexible front line, the Malga or the Ram, as it is.
They must feel better about running this without the Juno in the mix, right? As Quartz at range, she will get that kill on the Soon. Seems like maybe just like an explosion at range where, yeah, without the Juno in the mix, like that orbital array and, some of the extra healing that she can provide, maybe you feel like it's a little bit safer to run the Ramatra, where, you're not going to be as aggressive, right? Because, Ramatra doesn't have the ability like Maga to just run in, stomp, and knock a player down and then burst him down, where you can still play like quite aggressive, right? When Nemesis form is up, but you really kind of want to like poke and then wait for, Tread to come in. Tread takes a lot of damage right away.
Simtaris, they're all set up here in this left side of room as Tread walked on in and took a bunch of damage from them. And remember, Peps, Tread has said like he doesn't prefer to play Winston, but any other tank in the pool he feels like he can comfortably flex over to. So you might see a little bit more variety from Peps and some of these other teams. And look at Zarian pumping up the numbers. You just love to see this, Matt. Big heals. Here comes Katsuni Rush now as they try and make a play towards the point. You get down to the spike guard at the start of the fight. So Twisted Minds fight back with their Kiriko ultimate after already having lost a player. But Tread doesn't feel confident coming forward. He's taking too much poke damage and a boulder shot comes in off the side, but Quartz, he's not ready for the sound barrier.
Well, I mean, it's the nice boulder shot there from Quartz, but I mean, they just chase him down there with the effects of FD God's beat, where I was actually quite worried there for Peps, Mitch, because Tread was just getting so low constantly. Like, it feels like very difficult to keep him alive, right? Like, you can, block some of the damage and damage reduction, but the sim, right, starts to like charge up the slow with the turrets. Like, it can be pretty difficult, I know, for the Hazard to play into that sometimes, where it seemed like he was getting poked down constantly, but they did a nice job using some of those ultimates to keep him up.
Quartz has looked really good this game so far, and Soon walks away, stuck with the bolt. Not able to be healed up. FD God also eating one there as well, and once this Freya gets a couple of shots into you, you're going to be feeling it. Zeri lucky to be alive. Quartz is basically tearing Team Peps apart from that high ground position, and he'll take an even higher ground position to compensate. Now 55% accounting for Twisted Minds. Peps don't get much time in the sun, but it's enough at least to give him a foothold.
Yeah, I mean, you see around the corner, he just fires two explosives, almost kills Soon there, gets him back to like 1 HP. When you were talking about Soj versus the Freya, where Sojourn has like really good mobility to dodge, let's say like dives, right, that come on through. The Freya though can take so many interesting angles, right, getting some of that vertical mobility, as it'll be the overclock there. It puts down a little bit of damage. Really isn't the thing that kind of ends up winning the fight though.
Yubi going down though, of course, that's probably the key vulnerability for this Twisted Minds composition, Matt. Something that wasn't really exposed or exacerbated so much last week, but the fact is, you're not playing with a true shield tank, and these off-bangers can be really dangerous to those squishy DPSs that like to play in the front line like Symmetra does. So Peps here able to snowball off that one pick, but it's a big stall for Twisted Minds. It gets them to 99 at least, but Peps at least can leverage both their support ultimates here. It has to be to the tune of 55%.
Well, the Sim is a complete glass cannon, right? If the Sim can stay in the front line and kind of duel and live and get ramped up, I mean, the damage output is like unrivaled, right? As KSA will play Diva here, probably trying to peel a little bit, keep Ken off of the back line. But teams have realized, obviously, that, if you get rid of the Sim, that's like just a large source of damage gone from the opponents. Nice TP there from Yubi, gonna get to the other side of the point.
Eventually, looks like FT got forced to part with the beat, as I sense that he probably didn't want to in this kind of fight. KSA going to avoid any potential stagger there by heading over the edge. And so Team Peps end up spending both support ultimates in that fight. Really, they're leaning on a big pulse bomb to try and secure this round.
And we'll see if they're able to put it away, right? For the Twisted Minds there, you trade your Kitsune Rush for Rush and Beat on the other side, and then Simple takes out Ken. I mean, this could be massive here for TM to be able to get back into the point.
Zerian's lucky to walk away there as Quartz didn't have a charge shot to throw into him. Funny Astra's out of the game, but losing Tread definitely is a lot worse for Peps. And so Twisted Minds now can head back towards the point. They've lost their Sojourn. Quartz, I don't know what he was looking for there. FD God and Zerian able to combine onto him. there was a point flip amidst this fight, so Peps do need to start this touch going, and Ken doesn't have a recall for about 6 seconds, so he'll drop in. Looking for that backline here, all playing pretty compact, and Yubi actually melees Ken on the way through. Legitimately clotheslines the guy, and at that speed, there's no way Trace is going to pick himself up after it. Team Peps here get pretty close, but man, a couple crucial missteps, and Matt, they're both Ken eliminations that put Peps behind.
And you can see, though, the pressure that they're trying to put on Yubi there, right? I know Ken dives in on the Tracer. They got FD God there. They have Tread, like, just trying to get rid of that sim, right? That if the sim falls, like, you're not really worried about, like, Kiri, Lucio, Diva damage, right? You feel like you're going to be able to kind of survive through that pretty easily. So taking a look here at some of the stats early on, I mean, Quartz just farming. I mean, just look at the amount of damage, though, compared from, you know, him to Soon and Ken. I mean, he's got more than Soon and Ken combined. I mean, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, we saw some of those shots coming in early. There is obviously some travel time with those bolts. It's not as much as I guess we kind of think for that kind of projectile. So pretty consistently, we've been seeing them hit across the map. And oh yeah, we got the new Gundam win scheme for the Ramatra. I feel it. Unfortunately, Tread, it doesn't make you better at the game. Sadly,
but see, this is why I selected Yubi, because I thought you would end up in a match like this where I actually would favor Twisted Minds pretty heavily, right? In terms of like playing against Peps in this rush style, where you think that eventually it kind of like devolves into this with these two teams, and then this is where, like, you know, Yubi is like kind of the player you kind of think of with Sim and EMEA, right? With like how he's able to play it pretty consistently and wants to play it. So when I was building my lineup, this is exactly kind of what I was looking for. Is you know, now it's gonna be, ooh, this is a nice TP though from Peps. They get behind them.
All right, KSA having to whip around here, but concerned about the front line. Decent vortex actually to slow Peps down. Soon he's trying to play an off angle, but it's just getting owned. Frankly, just taking too many of these Freya shots, forced out of those sight lines entirely. Looking for rails. Obviously, you can farm them off that teleporter a little bit, farm them off the enemy Ramatra. But you've got to outdo Quartz's impact over the fight now, which is always a tough ask. And bowler shot now at the ready. One more charge shot in soon, and that will be the end of the veteran. Grizzled veteran that he is. Oh, the bowler shot committed to get rid of the Sojourn. Whatever it takes, says Quartz. I will commit. Peps really don't have any presence in this round so far. Kitsune Rush committed there, and it's going to be torn up instantly.
And I mean, annihilation from KSA while inside of that rush, the bola shot. I guess also you would, when you talk about like like the Sojourn versus the Freya, like how fast the Freya can build ultimate, right? Like overclock, I think you would like obviously value like way higher than like a bola shot, but the fact that the bola shot is up so constantly, right? You know, has to account for something.
Beat for FD God, keeping Ken alive, obviously going to be important. Both Sims are pretty vulnerable, of course, when they play that low ground here, so they need to try and make use of cover on this high ground, but also find a way to get good value and good charge. So it often forces them to play in the eye of the storm. Yubi taken down, though. There's that more vulnerability I mentioned earlier, falling to a hit scan threat. Sound barrier now comes out from Funny Astro. It's a little awkward, man. I don't know about that one. So your fantasy team, little Southsea, just put it out there. Still trying to play forward. KSA in that Nemesis form, trying to soak some damage, but Simple's now getting looks, and that's not ideal if Ramatra's able to go after a Kiriko like that. Quartz pressured up on that high ground. Big damage coming from Ken. Yubi's able to take them down at least, but what a dirty brawl this has turned out to be. Simple able to avoid scrutiny early on the round and come back and then take Tread down. But a Kitsune Rush has to be committed to the fight for Peps to find any modicum of success without their Ramatra. And look at the bulk of KSA.
Yeah.
It's so hard to run down. You commit everything to try and to push him over, and it's not enough. Easy map one take for Twisted Minds.
No, and then they end up using a Kitsune Rush towards the end there for Twisted Minds, and that allows them to end up taking it. But man, just like an absolute slugfest there towards the end of that second round. I agree with you, that Funny Astro beat. So like when I'm watching that, I was like, oh, this is actually really good from Twisted Minds, because the sound barrier comes in from Peps and they're trying to like push into Twisted Minds, but Twisted Minds, they speed out, they TP out, they kind of kite it, and they wait that sound barrier out, but then like they lose Yubi and like players are split from the low to the high and they're not able to get like a really good use of their beat. It's just Funny Astro and KSA, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, they're able to kind of you know, take that fight anyway. So big first map there for TM. That kind of went a little bit like how I was expected, you know, coming into the week.
You saw how much of that fight that KSA spent like in block mode in Nemesis form there. Didn't really have to do a whole lot damage-wise, trusting his team to do it. This first shot was great. Yeah, of course, just able to find a couple connections there on Soon that instantly won the duel for him. Sound Barrier came out in response to this bowler shot. Quartz taking a big risk, and maybe they hadn't tracked that ultimate or weren't expecting them to make use of it, but a pretty competitive round. I think, unfortunately, at the end of the first round, Matt, Ken dies at the start of the fight to Kiriko and then ends up dying while trying to push a backline and get onto UB, and then it's just over, basically. They're forced to play with 4 players too often. This round here felt like
also
Peps tried to emulate what Twisted Mind's doing. It wasn't great.
When Quartz by himself is doing the DPS output of both of your damage dealers, right? It's going to be very difficult to win, regardless of what else happens, right? It's like, just like the damage differential there is just so large. I mean, 10K throughout the course of 2 rounds, like that's pretty substantial, especially when you only have a 5K healing advantage, right? So that's like 5,000 effective damage. It just goes, you know, into players. So pretty large advantage there for TM.
Yeah, and what do you pin that huge difference in damage dealt on that?
Well, I mean, it's pretty hard. Like the Freya is able to just like get those explosive shots and just get angles like that you're not exactly used to, right? Because like she can jump into the air and like float and like take these angles like on top of buildings, over bridges, like, and it makes it really odd for especially like a Sojourn who's trying to put down consistent damage, like farm up rail shots and then just like one. Where we see time and time again, like Quartz is able to put like an explosive, arrow in like a 2 different players, right, and just basically take them down to 1 HP like right away. So I think it's something where, you know, we saw a lot of Freya last week. I think we probably continue to see more Freya, and I think other teams are going to have to adopt to it, right? I know some teams we didn't see kind of go to it at all last week. I think some teams are going to kind of have to go to it.
Yeah, and that's the question for me. Obviously, Soon comes in, plays the Sojourn. Do they have a Freya? Is it enough? Cookie played plenty of it last week and looked quite good there. It definitely seems to be superseded a little bit by the newest addition to our DPS line.
So Peps gets rid of the Juno in map 1. For me, that's like a target at the Maga, right? If you get rid of the Maga here, they're just going to play the Ram comp that they just beat you with. And then if you're TM, just get rid of the Soj, right? Like Soon just played Soj the entire time. Like just get rid of the Soj, like force him to play the Freya, right?
Yeah, I mean, you obviously now, because you're not first pick, you know, if Twisted Minds do well in this series, they won't have any options to like protect ban, obviously because they won't get first ban at all. And they know that there's a map where they're going to have to go without the Symmetra, but we've seen Newbie play the Tracer and look like more than serviceable there, right? There's a bunch of options still for this team. And some maps maybe don't play quite as nicely to the Sim. God, did we see these guys play Gibraltar last week and play the Sim? I want to say...
I want to say yes.
I've seen it on a lot of the maps that TM have played, so...
And for New Junk City, you can play Sim here, right? Sim, Maga, like we've seen these types of comps play pretty well here. I'm curious what Peps decides to do a first ban. Like, it feels like if they banned Freya, you would just play the Maga comps with like a Sojourn in the mix. If you're TM, it's not like they can play that. If you get rid of the Ram, they're just going to play Maga, right? So like, what's the route they want to go here? It seems like at least off of that first map, they wanted to get rid of the Maga. They targeted the Juno. The next obvious thing would be to just get rid of the Maga, right? Where potentially that kind of opens things up for a Ram matchup.
Yeah, Ramatra, I suppose, like Orisa has some play on New Junk City, especially if you pair her with something that, like, you know, maybe helps her mobility a little bit. She's definitely less preferable, I think. No subs here for Pep. So it's a Sim ban. Now, we're going to assume it's a Twisted Minds ban, but that obviously would be a little bit strange considering they've been really trying to push this. The Lucio ban here for Peps is the sort of first ban that comes out.
Yeah, it would be, I mean, a bit odd, right, for TM who has only played Sim to ban the Sim. Okay,
there we go.
Yeah, so it is flipped. Okay, so yeah, I was like, wait, hold on. So Yui has been insta-locking Sim now for 5 maps, and then we're just going to, you know, wildcard ban it here. But no, it is Peps who gets rid of the Sim, and then TM in response gets rid of the Lucio. So you can still play Maga-based compositions here if you are Twisted Minds. I don't think this is out of the equation.
Yep. Yeah, look, I mean, we've seen Lucio banned on some of these Flashpoint maps in the past, and teams just play Kiriko Juno, which is you know, so I don't think that's going to be a huge stretch. Obviously, having the mass speed is very, very good. You know, can give you some approximation of that, and you know, also have the carry, which is pretty handy. Now, question for you. I haven't actually had this interaction. I think I tried it the other night, but can you cleanse a bolt off one of your teammates, an explosive bolt?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it's like a moment of invulnerability, right? So you'd have to like, I believe, time the explosion. But yeah, I mean,
yeah, okay.
Cleanse can just do about anything.
I chucked one. Well, yeah, it's more about. I guess that's fair. And the invulnerability window is long enough to probably account for the explosion. But I tried it. I couldn't quite tell when I tried it. But there you go. I mentioned the reset.
Well, so I mean, you know, if it's you that was trying it, right, you actually have to hit the player with the cleanse. You can't.
No, I just hit the ground next to them. I hit the ground next to them. It's fine. It's pretty forgiving, man. Pretty forgiving. I mean, if you've never played support, you would know this, but there's actually got a bit of a radius on it, so you don't have to direct hit them.
I don't have that option in the menu.
Yeah.
Support.
Okay. Let's back it up here a little bit. So we do have Soon still on the Sojourn. Ken's Genji was banned of the previous map, so now they've got an opportunity to show us what they're made of. Soon, yeah. Every time I see one of those aim shots taken by the Sojourn, I start to stress. And Tread is just going to get worked out here. Yubi looks comfortable on the Tracer, doesn't really miss a beat. Soon at least is able to finally find something here, but I'm scared. Yeah, Fumzerian, and he will be brought down.
And just look at even the ult charge, right? That Quartz is able to build here off the rip. 60%. I know Soon is going to end up getting 2 kills here, right? So he's going to get a little bit closer, but still behind.
Okay, Yubi going down. I mean,
yeah.
Again, like we now of course know that Freya does not like to be pressured up close, right? Genji can be a bit of an issue for her, as you could probably just imagine if you compare those two heroes in your head. So Ken is able to find a flank angle and actually finally put some pressure down on Quartz. Peps might have an option here to make it harder for Quartz to play as aggressively on those off angles, because that's the difference between the Soj and the Freya sometimes. That Soj can play in formation pretty happily, especially because Disruptor Shot gets a lot of value there, whereas Freya wants to be a little bit of a looser end.
I'd also say I like the Team Peps backline better in terms of like Brig Juno versus like the Juno with the Kiri. Like we've seen teams try and run the Juno with the Kiri for an extended period of time, even in stage 1. It hasn't produced the best results. Full shot available here for Quartz. His Tread is going to get DMAC'd. That is a tough loss there for Peps.
Still a pretty healthy lead on this flashpoint for now. KSA going down. This is probably going to account to a little bit more extra percentages. Twisted Minds literally had to walk up on some of these Peps players, which they now will do. Yubi cleans them up, but 84% accounting for Peps with a rally into the next fight.
Yeah, you see Quartz is able to take that perk that allows him to see critical enemies like through walls, right? So tracking Soon right around the corner, knows that he didn't pick up a health pack, knew he was going to come back out and contest. When Ken gets this blade, that'll be interesting, like how you try and fight this, right? Because no rally, no sound barrier, obviously with Lucio gone, no big support ultimate to kind of block out Ken's blade, where like if you had a rally on the other side, right? Like the bash is really strong against a blade.
Running and play, KSA, oh, with the Annihilation. Twisted Mind's really trying to get ahead of this now, but the problem is you can still fight a Ramatra in Annihilation. KSA desperately trying to defend himself now. The pumped heals onto the front line of Twisted Minds, keep him in the fight. That Annihilation lasted for an inordinate amount of time, but here comes Ken with the blade. Exactly what you want to do. Try and walk up on the Freya. He doesn't have a dash cooldown now, so he needs to respect it, and the bolt does detonate. But Yubi elsewhere is able to find a key pulse bomb onto FD God, and he's found 3 kills in this fight. You take your sim away, and he's still free to have an impact, still free to run through your backline.
And he doubles back, gets the benefits of the orbital ray there, gonna time the recall there not to get hit by that self-destruct, but still gonna end up losing to Tread anyway, as Tread will finally get DMAC'd. As TM hold on in the end here, Mitch. Good start here for Peps, but Twisted Minds able to take this first point.
Yeah, honestly, that sequence from Yubi was about as good as it gets for a Tracer. In a situation like that. Big pulse kill on the Brig, that's always like your first intended target, and then able to clean up really beautifully. Stall out. Dyna Diva, doesn't really matter. You can see the difference in impact there. 9 eliminations, Yubi for 2 deaths. Ken is 4, 0-2.
Nobody in the chat believed. They were like, what is this team? And then some of the people in the chat were like, yo, he's kind of cooking with this. Like, if Yubi plays well, there might be something here. We're getting it here today. It's Tread, I mean, he lands an explosive shot. I mean, there's no way he can survive there. I mean, I know they're just taking so much damage from KSA. KSA is basically at full HP and just walks him down on the bridge.
just not the start that Peps were looking for here at all. After a pretty decent beginning, with their Genji-based composition, able to threaten Quartz's position early in that last fight in Arena. This time, though, well, Quartz has a lot more space to breathe. Peps caught unawares. Now, again, nothing exciting on the horizon for them in terms of these ultimates, whereas Twisted Minds obviously can do this. Exactly this kind of thing. FD got brought down before Yubi would be able to take yet another pulse kill on the Brig. Tread has dealt with simple, so going aggressive here, but Peps are likely very spread out after that little passage of play, and looking at the point, you can see that was in fact the case. Soon's forced to double away. Tread's able to defense matrix and keep them alive, but Yubi's there to clean up. This is, as far as Tracer play is concerned, look, it's full marks right now for Yubi.
Yeah, I mean, this has been pretty ugly from Team Peps here on their map pick, right? This is their map pick, their first ban, right? To get rid of that sim. And it has been a little bit of a mess here, where also, you know, it's quite interesting, right? We talked a little bit about it, but Twisted Minds banning Lucio when they have Funny Astro. I mean, that kind of tells you what they think in terms of the gap between Funny Astro and FD God potentially on some of these other supports. That's going to be the second point right away, as they are speed running through Team Peps here on New Junk City.
Yeah, this is pretty impressive stuff, and they walk into the next engagement with an annihilation. Unlikely KSA is going to be remotely as aggressive with that now, but the fact that they can pair that with a Kitsune Rush, you know, that Ramatra is going to be able to cycle those Nemesis forms quickly and also just have a terrifying burst of speed. He already is pretty quick once he pops that Nemesis form. A lot to be afraid of here for your Peps. A lot rests on Ken getting stuff done. Okay, Boulder Shot comes in and is eaten by Tread, but the front line collapses instantly. And what's crazy to me is that no support ult had to be used. No Kitsune Rush was required.
No.
You know, Peps is 8th in ultimate and still got ruined.
Yeah, and now you're going to get Tread demeched here, right? So he's going to have to make a swap, going to lose the ultimate charge here. As, man, this thing's gone from bad to worse here for Peps. As TM did push right through the choke. Don't really need to use anything there to be able to take it, right? Bola shot used, but now Twisted Minds, you'll end up having a double support ult. It'll be actually simple kicking things off here with a Kitsune Rush.
Caught out of the game. Mizarian able to find him just with some torpedoes. Shield put in the right direction there for FD God. Starting up KSA, who does have Annihilation ticking, and that shield eventually is going to crumble. FD God brought to heal as a result. And here comes KSA, just throwing an Nemesis form in to make sure he has got max uptime of these flying fists. Zarian might be able to get away here, but Ken's play has only been able to find simple so far, and Twisted Minds may look to regroup somewhat. Ken drops down, direction of KSA, who's still healthy. Funny Astro is more than enough to keep Twisted Minds topped up under these conditions, and Peps have had a pretty quiet outing so far today, Matt.
If the idea for Peps here is to apply pressure onto Quartz, and maybe that's what you're able to do, like with a Sojourn Genji Diva combination, it has not worked in any aspect. As soon as able to use this overclock, take out Funny Astro, but what, are they even going to make it to the point? No, they're not, and that's going to be a 2-0 lead for Twisted Minds. I mean, when did we start these games?
25 minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean, this is, come on, man, we're trying to get drops here for the people, but Peps, come on, put it together. But no, I mean, just a dominant performance from Twisted Minds. And I think, though, this speaks to, this team is so good at playing this style, right? When they are not thrown off really their game and they can play this style of play, that they can put results like this against a lot of different teams, right? Not just Peps, but Peps willing to kind of go into that head-to-head today. They're getting farmed.
I mean, I'm Peps in terms of their ban strategy. I can't really argue with any of it, right? The Ramatra here, I think also KSA is also demonstrating that, okay, if you do ban the Malga or if you ban the Ramatra, like I've got a ton of other options here. You grimaced a bit when I brought up the Orisa as an option pre-game. We ended up seeing it from TVNT, but that did not seem to be it at all, man.
No, I don't think it really accomplishes much against the Ram, and then it just gives another target for Quartz to just free fire on, right? I mean, they're running the Genji and maybe the Sojourn as well to try and, you know, pressure out the Freya, and Quartz is just up in the sky, just putting down explosive shots, just you know, dominating, right? You're playing the Diva there, trying to use the DM to get people in. If you would have just played the Orisa, I mean, it could have been even faster, I think. So for me, it's also really difficult for Peps because a lot of the stuff that they probably want to ban out is also stuff they would ideally like to have at their disposal, right? Like they wouldn't want to ban Now, obviously, TM banned Lucio, right? But like, Peps could obviously do that for some type of like Juno Brig type of thing, but that also puts FD God at a bit of a deficit, right? You ban the Freya, that just moves Quartz over to Sojourn, and that doesn't exactly feel like a win, right? When like Maga and Juno end up in, you get rid of Maga, right? You're not going to play it, but they've already beaten you playing Ramatra against what you would play against Ramatra, right? So you don't really have a lot of great alternatives for Peps.
Do we think that Peps even have a Kiriko Juno potential?
Probably not.
I was wondering, like, does FD play Kiri? I'm not particularly sure. Looks pretty good here. I think like Kitsune Rush obviously has amazing like inbuilt synergy with what Ramatra provides, and Brig definitely has her place, especially up against those Tracer compositions. But you know, you are the first target for Pulse Bomb, and you are pretty easy to stick with that. So, I mean, this is pretty definitive, right? Peps are very good at you know, having to heal. But the deficit in damage done is just completely ridiculous. Like, 12k is like, that is like 1.5. That is 1.5 DPS heroes worth of damage over the course of like a relatively medium to long length game. Like, you want what, like 6k, 8k damage, like for a DPS here, like 12k.
There's only so much healing you can do. Right? Man. Like, I mean, how much they almost double them up in healing, right? But I mean, it's still nowhere close to be able to kind of stay alive through that. So it will be Circuit, which will be the pick here for Peps. You can play like Sigma here, but this is another map where Ramatra is really good, right? Like, I don't think Ramatra's, you know, awful tank on this map. I think Ramatra's pretty high in terms of the tier list of what you would play here on Circuit. So another opportunity. Is this where you could ban the Ramatra here, and this isn't a great Maga map, right? Like, but then Ziad just plays Diva, right? Like, or you know, like you're trying to force some type of Sigma play.
I mean, they might be trying to
you would have going for.
Yeah, I think like the one thing, if you're a Peps fan and you want this team to lean into, is probably Tread's flexibility. But I don't think that necessarily helped them much in the previous map, where Orisa just didn't look like it was the answer to those comps. Like, Tread can play the Ramatra, we did see that in the second round, but it's not just about like whether he can play the hero, it's whether like Peps are like used as this version of the team to playing around those comps. Also, like, they've got like Soon in this week for Cookie, who was really good. And honest, I'm sorry, like Soon is not you know, he's able to fight a couple of these like railgun picks at the start of some of these fights, which is great, but he's not able to really string together like this, the level of performance that Yubi put out in the last map, for example. So,
or I mean,
Circuit Royale's a great chance for that.
Quartz is like doubling, you know, them at times, right? Where I thought Cookie last week looked pretty good, right? I know for Peps, they were able to obviously get a win. Curious on the substitution, you know, pattern here for Peps. Maybe Cookie, you know, we obviously have had players be sick, not available. Maybe that's the situation here that Peps is dealing with. We just don't know yet. But Cookie, I thought, looked pretty good last week. And, you know, one of their newer pickups with Tread, I imagine that they played, you know, them a ton, right? You know, putting Cookie in a ton. So it will be Team Peps getting that first ban, and they will ban Ramatra. So that's kind of what I was talking about before, right? This is a pretty good Ramatra map, but it's one that you can get rid of the Ramatra, and then the Maga isn't really good, right? So it kind of puts you into another situation. I kind of like the Pharah ban, though, too. Like, the Pharah ban, that is something that TM doesn't really, you know, I mean, you know, UV can play it, but it's not like, you know, how they used to have with like Lambda, right? It's something that you can definitely, you know, have an issue, you know, going up against. So that'll be a Pharah ban for TM. As man, we are really going wild with that cow today. I mean, there's a whole lot of what is that the cow, right? Busan.
Sure. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was from Busan for sure. So we have a Peps Ramatra ban, so probably more expected ban, especially based on our discussion coming in. Pharah obviously can be a real nuisance on this map. Soon has played a bunch of Pharah in his time, so I get it. FD God, I would love the ER from FD God. I'm not sure if we're going to get it though.
I mean,
the defensive Zen is interesting, because I always sort of felt against like the Sigma comps, it was you know, a little bit neither here nor there. But if the Freya's playing like away from the protective zone of the SIG, and you can stick those discords.
I was gonna say ball sojourn Freya. We'd have to get like Isak in here to figure out what's going on with Peps. Hit Sean Garris up, see what's going on.
No, he's got his hands full, buddy. Trust me.
As they will play the Sigma. So Sigma obviously very strong on this map. Curious that we're seeing like a Freya with Sojourn, right? Typically we've seen kind of one or the other. So interesting that they actually have a Ken play the Freya. If I'm trying to remember from last week, like I think we saw even Cookie play some of the Freya. So maybe just an issue with the lineup here today. As
yeah, they did.
It'll be simple playing the Zen here. So Zen obviously provides like a really large amount of damage output. Same as kind of the Iliari in aspect, though. Zen's damage is obviously behind the Discord and some of the damage amplification for the team. Where Knight's Accretion there from KSA knocks down Tread, and now of course taking out FD God.
I don't want to, repeat the meme there, but FD God is playing on top of the bridge here in a really aggressive position while Tread is knocked down by an Accretion. So there is so much room for Twisted Minds just to go look in his direction and pick him off. But there's the Sojourn pick on course. Twisted Minds are going up against a hyper poke composition. So they know that one little mistake can get exacerbated, but if they can get out of line of sight into safety, I wouldn't call that safety for simple. They'll be okay.
I don't know if you caught that there. UB actually tried to block the Accretion by using an ice block, just jumping in front of KSA. Almost able to do it as Tread and Co will get the cart around the corner. Funny Astro though with this orbital ray, right? You're going to be able to fight this. It's a very difficult corner to get around, right? So just because Peps got it to this position doesn't mean they're just going to kind of cruise on home as Ken takes out UB.
Okay, switch over towards the May here. It's really worked out for UB. Yeah, I mean, again, you are giving a great killing field for the poke composition that Team Peps are playing, especially if you are looking all floaty like that. Funny Astro being brought down there soon. This is what I was mentioning that we didn't see in the previous maps. Beautiful little sequence there from the Sojourn play. He's locked in now. It's good to see.
Yeah, this comp has definitely worked for Peps. Funny Astro uses the orbital ray there, right? You end up winning. You hold on to your orbital ray. You're going to have a captive sun here. So everything's starting to work out for Peps. You get another good fight here. You're very close to taking that second checkpoint.
Simple looking. Come forward a bit. That's cute. Using the hover perk there.
Yeah.
Well, he's hovering now, isn't he? All right, Transcender's going to be popped there, though, so no issue for Twisted Minds as they come forward. Bowler shot thrown out there by Quartz, no real connection. He'll go down, but Tread has fallen. That might be the more important pick here. Ken's looking to get into the back line. It's a wayward Accretion as KSA trying to track him to some degree. And UB eventually falls. Still, the back line intact here for Twisted Minds. Bowler shot almost enough to account for them. And yeah, FD God's able to clean them up. That was a beautiful bowler there from Ken. Now have you had to back away as, well, Kinetic Grasp has to be used by KSA to keep himself alive.
Yeah, I was going to say, they did a really nice job from Twisted Minds with like KSA and bow supports being able to stay alive, but the bolo shot from Ken changes all of that, right? Gets at high ground that Freya can really only get, and just lands that bolo shot on both supports, and then KSA gets really low. Yubi's going to go over and play Sim here, right? So it's going to allow him to TP through that really narrow choke, see if he can put some damage down.
And see how hard it gets for TM up when the Iliari turret is taken down. It got picked off right at the start of the fight, whereas, Team Peps have been abusing their positioning of that turret for quite some time here. Trade hit with an Accretion. KSA, last one to be brought down here. Peps, all things considered, pretty expeditious run through Circuit Royal so far. This mega poke composition definitely paying off for them.
Yes, KSA will play Diva now, right? So wants to play. There's really not a lot of, you have obviously the Kinetic Grasp, but there's really not a lot of protection for that backline or the DPS, right? It's just kind of closing that gap with enough HP to be able to kind of take them out. So having that Diva in the mix, being able to kind of get past that Sigma, maybe put some pressure on a Ken and soon. Also being able to use the Sim TP, right? Move around the map. Look at that. I mean, they use that Sim TP to get behind them and then just drop an orbital ray. I mean, there's no way you can react fast enough there if you're Peps.
The sim here is really good. There are so many places to get a free turret value, and also those TPs on a dime are very powerful because at some point the defenders actually get put into a relatively uncomfortable part of this map where they have to give a lot of ground to still have relevant high ground control. It's just past this point, so The longer they can hold this part of the map, the better. And that's simple. Switching to the Iliari off the Zenyatta, able to find a massive pick there on Ken. Of course, chilling. He actually doesn't have anything to shoot at right now. Such as how comfortable things are for Twisted Minds, but there's still 3 minutes of clock to burn here. That's a long time in Overwatch terms.
It also puts Peps Mitch in a little bit of a bind because, like, would Peps probably want to play like a diva in this type of situation? Like, possibly, right? Because what Quartz is sitting up there on the high ground with Simple and just putting down damage on players as they walk through the choke, right? Being able to use that defense matrix, get players in. But like, then you think UB just kind of like starts farming the diva up at the door, right? It makes it very difficult for the diva to kind of get even through the choke. So like, you're playing this Sigma that can be pretty slow to get in, right? And it allows just so much space to open up here for Twisted Minds.
God, and the symbol is so good against poke comps, Matt, for obvious reasons. But the safe zone here for Twisted Minds is pretty far forward. Such that Peps now finally have to switch over towards the diva. So make an attempt here to dive with the Genji.
Yep.
But it gets harder and harder from here on out, I feel. They've got to find a way to get to Quartz in the first place, which is easier said than done. They've got that good mobility, but UB can turn up and, at a moment's notice anywhere on the map, essentially, with the rest of Twisted Minds. So Sue's hoping for a pick off this. But there's a lot of ground that Twisted Minds took that they can now just give back in order to play in safe zones.
But this is what I was talking that Peps would have been like forced to do. It's going to be a self-destruct up in the sky, doesn't get anything, KSA not able to get back in the mech. And you know, they actually switch to the diva, but they also use Ken on the Genji, right? You can kind of cross that gap with the Genji, push these players that were, you know, these players that are fighting here. I mean, that's crazy. These players that are fighting here were like up on that front bridge, right? So you can just see the, how much pressure they put back, made them fall all the way back to this area on the high ground. But they don't actually finish everybody, right? That allows, you know, Twisted Minds to drop down and keep the card contested.
I mean, again, we're down to a minute and 10 seconds left here. Peps still haven't really been able to unravel this setup here from Twisted Minds. Here's an orbital ray. Keep KSA in mech. No, that's not going to work. Still, he's going to go to work with the Buddy Blaster because you never know. It's going to take him a hot minute, though, to charge that up, even with the empowerment of that orbital ray. But again, that ultimate's so powerful on its own, of course, is able to take this mean little high ground angle. That Twisted Minds able to win the fight, even though they lost their diva mech so early. Simple also close to a captive Sun now, which last time was good for a free pick on FD God.
So, I mean, Ken getting very low there. Some nice shots from Quartz. Actually times the recall really nice. Pretty well. Just not able to finish the kill off. Is what I thought was huge there, Mitch, right? Is KSA ends up getting D-Mech. That's actually a nice, barrier and, just kind of like a knockback there from FD.
Not my good! Not my good!
Oh, he's going to die. Yeah, Zerion, your fantasy. That he's dying with your fantasy team.
Yeah, but he's done so much healing this game, Matt. He's done so much healing. Just want to point that out.
I mean, prayers to the people who had soon Ken or Cookie today. But what FD God did there is like a stun up on KSA that allowed them to get that kill, but there's just not enough follow up there, and that is where the cart will stop moving. Does it feel like to you that once, obviously Ken has to go over to like the Genji to get towards that high ground, but it just feels like their damage output was so low without the Freya in the mix, right?
Yeah. And again, like, they are playing the more mobile version of this diva composition. Like, the Genji is obviously in the mix, can sort of go dive with the diva. I think the sim is still a problem. Especially if you pull up on some part of the map that actually has those turrets placed defensively. Like, any Genji player knows, like, the last thing they want to walk into is those sim turrets. As soon as they would have a really good game, 14 eliminations, but crucially, it's the first two parts of the map where he is able to not only clean up the fights, but open them up with really important picks. I think that, like, you really need that. You really need that from your, Sojourn player, but it has to be sustained over the course of the game. Funny, Astro got targeted pretty heavily by Team Peps and did a good job going after the Juno here, but Twisted Minds, I like the hyper poke look, but once they switched off the Zen towards the Iliari, things started looking even better for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Twisted Minds made the right adjustments there throughout the round, and I will say for Peps, probably the best round we've seen from Soon, right? Throughout the series thus far, it's been the best look that we've gotten from him. So it'll be interesting to see here if he's able to kind of continue this strong play.
Out of the gates we go. Team Peps now Again, we're able to make it as far into the map as they would like to. And we have the right half of KSA. This is a little bit, I alluded to the London Spitfire way of playing. Last time we saw Twisted Minds, this is even closer to it. They still have a really strong poke-oriented setup, but obviously they've got a very, a much more strong shield.
It feels like they're kind of stumping on this point. I mean, yeah, this is like, see them
KSA walk up in a bro. Hey, you gotta respect this guy, right? Listen, that shield, look at that shield. That lasted so long. That shield is so big. Everyone tells me how big that shield is. It is the biggest shield in the game.
Yeah, it's a UB actually with a TP there. I love KSA with no fear, just running straight past the Sigma barrier and then somehow not being punished for it here. So, man, this is just, clean here from TM. Playing the Rhine. I mean, you can see how unexpected it was to play the Rhine. Doesn't even have a skin on. I mean, that's
it's so cold that he actually hits the default skin. I'm not gonna lie. UB's doing it as well. Is this a movement? Is this a minimalist Overwatch movement?
Yeah, straight up Overwatch 1 skin just defaulted, running it down. That's crazy. It's they'll play close to the door. They're gonna have both support ultimates here, right? The Reinhardt can actually be really good inside of Orbital Rape, right? I think you're gonna have the Bola shot here, so see just the trickery with the TP, right? It's gonna put a UV behind him. Quartz is gonna use the Bola shot. Oh, just destroy soon at range.
I mean, I think now we have it like pretty definitively that Twisted Minds are the better team, but obviously like Sigma wants to give up space in small increments, right, while rotating his cooldowns and buying time for his poke comp to get value. Ryan wants to take that space very quickly. He wants to occupy it instantly, and it makes it a little bit hard for Sigma to play that sort of war of attrition because Ryan just says, no, you're gonna fight me now on the front line. You don't have time to think, you don't have time to react. Oh, that was a gravitic flux that never really got off. Twisted Minds here just rushing Peps down now.
It feels like to me though, if you're gonna be a team like Peps and play this style in EMEA,
what is
like you need to be truly like elite at it, right? Like where Twisted Minds,
my god!
I mean, Twisted Minds, you see just like how good they are at this style of play. Like if you can't match this, if you're a team Peps, like you got to consider like going in a completely different direction, or at least having another alternative, right? Like one of the things I think that the Ultimates have obviously looked really good at, working some more dive into their game plan. Where I think if you're Peps, you got to start thinking about another way to kind of work different comps in, because it's not pretty today.
That was diabolical. No, that's war crimes. Oi, buddy, that is brutal stuff. Twisted Minds, they play fair, they play nice for the first couple of maps. So we get to Circuit Royal, they realize they've been able to hold off Peps. They play the Reinhardt. With the sim, obviously, it's a very powerful little setup, and teams have, in the past, used that style to, overcome some of the topographical disadvantages the less mobile Ryan comp can have. In this case, though, TM used it purely to get into Peps' head.
I mean, they just ran through them. I mean, Peps didn't really put up, like, we're kind of talking about the overall Reinhardt strategy there, because like Peps is really not putting up any, like there was not really a fight on defense, right? They just kind of ran through the map. Look, I thought Twisted Minds would win this series. I didn't think it would look like this. I thought it would be a little bit more, drag and knock back on both sides, but Twisted Minds dominated today.
Yeah, absolute clinical performance. And as you said, that we kind of thought that's how it's gonna go down, but in that dominant of a fashion, clearly Twisted Minds had some lunch plans or afternoon plans, because they just kind of ran through it. It started off on Busan, and like it literally just went from bad to worse as the match progressed. Like it felt like Peps never really found their footing. You guys talked about the comms they're playing. Peps trying to like kind of play what Twisted Minds are playing, but like on such a lower level that they did not look comfortable on it at all.
Sojourn? What is this Sojourn Freya? Sorry, my goat soon needs to go and watch Cars 3 and then report back. Because I don't know what.
Like more damage output.
I get it, but it is tough, obviously, against like a pretty heavy shield setup. But Suno's also like he's pounding at some part of this map, right? We get like a legend level performance from him for a short time, but it passes so quickly, and all of a sudden, a team are playing the Diva. They've got the sim back in their mix, and again, like Peps just don't seem to know what to do.
This series, though, you could watch map 1 and have a really good idea of how this series was going to go the rest of it, because it was clear that like Peps wanted to play a fairly similar style of play, but was just getting like heavily outmatched. And then at that point you talk about like how the rest of the series goes in terms of like the ban process, and there's nothing they can really do to give themselves like swing that advantage like back in their way, right? Because they all want to play the similar types of comps. So
yeah,
that's where you need to have some variation. I think like how, you know, Christopher and other, you know, coaches, players talked about for EMEA, where you need to be able to kind of play some different type of stuff, because you can't get in a scenario like this where it's like, oh well, we just want to play Rush, they want to play Rush, but like we're way worse, right? Like there's no like, how do you win? So I mean, it's just a pretty brutal loss there for Peps. See them go back to the drawing board a little bit.
Yeah, I really feel like that was not too much which could have been done in terms of map choices or like hero bans and whatnot. They was just like, well, they kind of got, it was outmatched. They got outmatched. No, even on Gibraltar.
But you don't want to play Gibraltar either. Yeah, that's the problem.
Exactly. So
we do the Ryan Sim. It's great. It works.
Does it? Yeah. Until it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, I mean, let's focus on the positives here. Obviously, Twisted Minds looking really clean. Juby is getting themselves the Player of the Match honors. Last week we saw lots of just Symmetra, but today we saw Juby touching some other heroes as well. And just generally, I feel like whatever Twisted Minds were playing, they looked comfortable. It didn't feel like anything threw them off their game, whereas the opposition team Peps, like, they were kind of struggling. They just started to, like, it almost sounded like it seemed like a panic swap onto certain heroes to try and match, but they just couldn't. So Twisted Minds taking this one.
Yeah, for me, Mitch, it's not even the sim; it's the Tracer on map 2.
It's a Tracer play. Yeah, I think like New Giant Cities was such a blowout. It was such a non-map, and that's the thing. Like, obviously, Yubi does more than just the gimmicky sim, and that's why he has a place on a top team in Europe. But that performance, even from my expectations, was that's probably why they get Player of the Match here. It was pretty wild.
Absolutely, and that means that Twisted Minds are now climbing up in the standings, of course, as well. Yes, they did lose their first match of Stage 2 against a very clean-looking Alcazia, and that was a 5-map banger as well.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they shouldn't be -2. They should be +2 now with that map differential.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that should technically put them at second for now. But yeah, like, look, good showing from Twisted Minds. I think that, you know, this team, we have questions about like what's the plan with their tank line, but I don't think it really matters too much when it works so well for them. It's when things stop working for this team that you start to worry. But front to back right now, they look like they're very well prepared for like a top 3 showing in this region.
Look, if nobody is going to, if you're not going to force them off of their comfort stuff and you're going to try and play like the Rush with them, they can contend with anybody in the region, right? It's just when, you know, somebody comes in and they play like a sick Winston comp or like Hazard and they like throw off, you know, the Ram, the Maga completely, that's when things start to like spiral a little bit out of control for TM.
Well, we'll see which team is managing to push them there. Thus far, it's not happened. Up next, we do, of course, have our EMEA top dog, Alcazia, going up against the newly promoted Frosttails Esports. So we're going to see you after this.